Hey everybody, so today we're making a requested video. We're making a rolled leather keychain, and this comes from when we made our bag and the rolled leather handle here. A bunch of people said, wow, could you make that into a keychain? So we're going to show you how to do that. If you've never made a rolled or tubular leather handle or whatever, check out our first video. It's a full tutorial. I'll link it in the top corner, whichever one that is. I'm going to forego some of the super basics because we just covered it a month and a half ago. We're starting with a 3mm leather cord, and mine is 8 inches long. Now in our finished version, you can make these as long as you want. You could make a lanyard, you could make it a little smaller. The big difference with the keychain is I use a thinner weight leather. So I am using, this is about 2 ounces. This is actually a little too light, but we're just going to roll with it because I want to show you that when you're making these, you can use leather. If you have a pull-up leather that kind of looks, it's been folded in the scrap bin and stuff, by the time you're done, none of this is going to show. This is all good leather for stuff like this. So the first thing I'm going to do, because I have an 8-inch leather core, I'm going to cut a strip of leather that's like 12 inches long. So these measurements are going to be specific to the weight of leather you're using, the size of the cord you're using, and the length of the cord you're using. So don't take this as gospel, but I'm just going to share with you what I'm doing with all the stuff that I'm using. So I have my 3mm cord here. Because of that, I know with a thinner leather, this is only a 1-inch strip. You'll remember in the bag video, because we used a thicker leather, I used a wider strip. But with this, we won't need to go that wide. So the first thing I'm going to do is start by making some markings. And I need to know, or it would be helpful to know, the center of my strip, and then I'm going to go 4 inches out on either end, and then I'm going to make a center line down the middle. And per our tip video, I'm just using the lines on my cutting board to get all these right. And these don't have to be perfect because this is kind of like a, we're doing a lot of bending and folding and stuff in this project. We just need approximations. I'm also going to mark a 1/2 inch from the end on both sides of the cord that I'm using, and this is why I like leather cording instead of like a nylon, because now we're going to skive this down. Once we have this prep work done, it's already time to glue. So I'm going to glue up our body. I'm going to pretty much glue the whole thing, because unlike our tubular handle, for the bag, we're not going to be lining this with anything. We're going to be folding it into itself pretty much the whole way. The only exception is I'm not going to glue past our end mark on one side, and we'll talk about why we do that later. For our cording, I like to do my skive side down, but it doesn't really make a difference. It's just personal preference. So I'm just going to glue the top of this first, and then once we stick this onto our leather piece, we'll do a little bit more glue on the underside, which will then be flipped over and nail the top side. Once our glue's all tacked up, all we're going to do is place our cord and just try to follow the line as best that we can. Now, if it's a little off, that's totally fine. We'll fix it when we roll everything together. I just like to have the center line there to kind of use a little guide to make sure I'm being at least a little bit accurate. Then I'm going to tap this down. And unlike the tubular handle, we're not going to put liners. So now I can go in with my glue. And this is an optional step. There are some people that don't glue the core at all. You don't have to. I like to, I like how it gets everything nice and solid stuck together. And then I'm just going to make sure that I'm glued at least on this edge up to my core and maybe a little bit past it. So once this is all dry, and by dry, we mean we're using contact cement, so you want it barely sticky to the touch. That's when it's the strongest to use. I'm going to start from the middle And I'm going to work on, all I'm going to do is work on matching my edges on this one. And I'm going to go out from the middle like this until we get to the end of our core. And then I'm going to go back here. And some people do this from the outside in. There's plenty of ways, however you feel the most comfortable. But since we're not using a lot of extra leather, you want to make sure that your edges are matching up fairly well. And now once we do this, I'm going to go to this other side again, make sure that's kind of stuck. And I'm going to fold this all the way down. And there isn't a core from here down. That's totally fine. We want that because it's going to be going inside of our little key loop thing. And now we're going to go to our bone folder and get this stuck down. So now it's time to punch our stitching holes, and instead of running a stitch line, all I'm going to do is I'm going to use the groove that we made with our bone folder up against our core. And I'm going to use that as my stitch line because I really want these stitches to be up tight against our core so that this thing feels nice and secure. Once this is all stitched up, this is the only stitching we need to do for this piece. So I've gone ahead and sanded this edge down. You'll remember in the tubular handle video, we trimmed this. We're not going to trim it because we used that thinner strip. It doesn't require any trimming if you're using a 3mm cord with an inch strip of 2 to 3 ounce leather. So I'm just going to do a nice bevel on this. And this is similar to the handle because people are going to hold this, right? So we want to make sure that this edge is nice and rounded and comfortable to hold. Then I'm going to do a burnish with some gum trag and a piece of canvas. And if you got big hands like me, this is kind of going to be a pain to hold, but you just kind of got to go little by little down the edge of it. Believe it or not, we are in the home stretch. So the way that this is going to work is we're going to be doing a lot of trimming. This piece that we glued together is going to fit inside of this piece, the other side that we left open. Then we're going to take a piece of like 5-6 ounce leather, and we're going to wrap this around with our keyring and rivet it, but we got a whole bunch of extra stuff here. So I'm going to start by taking my open end, laying it flat like this, and cutting about a 1/2 inch off. And we're going to cut more off, and the reason I'm not giving you exact measurements is because we're rolling this, and it's so dependent on the materials that you're going to have every piece is going to be different. Then we're not doing them together like this, we're going one inside of the other. So I'm going to line this up kind of like this, and I'm going to make a little mark here. Then I'm going to come in and I'm going to cut this at an angle. Like that. We're going to put a rivet right there though, so we don't want to go too crazy with it, but we definitely don't need all that bulk. And now we're starting to see that's going to fit right in there like that. And I'm going to take this even a little more mellow. The more mellow you go, the more you're going to be able to fit one piece inside of the other, but the less material you have to rivet to. So it's kind of a fine balance, but you get to choose what you want to do. Now I'm going to go over on this side. This probably looks extremely foolish, but I couldn't figure out how to make an exact pattern for this, so I'm just showing you how I do it. And we're going to go like that, and then I'm going to just flush cut the end. So this is roughly what we have. And once we get to this point, I'm going to take my scratch awl, and I'm going to make some marks because it's time to glue. I'm going to make a mark right there, and then I'm going to transfer it to that side, and I'm going to rough this leather up. We're not going to see any of this, so that's why I'm kind of just making marks on the face of the leather all willy-nilly, because it's all going to be hidden. And now we're going to put a little bit of glue in here and a little glue on these edges. So once our glue's dry, we're going to take our piece that we glued together and we're going to stick it inside of the piece that we left open and just squeeze. And you can see starting to look like keyring here. And with those angles that we cut, you see how that's all nice, and there we go. And I'm just going to tap this down with a hammer now. So that's nice and stuck. It's looking nice and neat. Next step, we're going to take our hole punch, and you can measure this out, but I'm just going to kind of go for it. I'm going to punch a hole right in the middle there. And that's going to be for our pop rivet once we get our loop made from our thicker leather. While I'm here, I'm going to take my smaller punch. This is a 1/2 inch. And you see we have a flat, or we've cut this flat, but we're putting a curved ring in here. So what we can do is we can take our punch, we can go with it facing outwards here. Oh, actually, we could use the 3/4 punch and mellow it out a little bit. There we go. So now, instead of having a flat piece, we have a curved piece. And I'm going to go in with I'm going to cut those little edges off. And it's just a little detail, but it will help when you can see how nice that's going to fit now. That will help when we get our key loop on there. All right, and now it is time for assembly. So I have my little key ring loop leather thing that I made, and I just burnished the sides of it. I have a double capped rivet here in brass, and then I also have our signature split rings, and this one's the solid brass one. And for those waiting, the reason we're doing this video not on a normal day is because they're coming out Friday, and we'll have a video on Friday with the release. So the way that we're going to do this is I'm going to take my key loop here, I'm going to fold this in half. I'm going to put my split ring right there in the middle so you can see that's what that looks like. Then I'm going to put that key loop on the split ring, or on the I'm going to put the key loop on the key fob keychain. This part goes on this part. And we're going to shove this. It actually kind of helps if you do it in layers here, but we're going to stick the male part of the double capped rivet through everything, and then we're going to pop the female part on there, and there we go. Now all that's left is to set this. I'm going to use our little Wonder Press. And there we go. Nice and simple, super classy, and it takes so little leather. This is such a great project to use those little like you have little 1-inch strips, you don't really know what to do with them. This is a great thing to make with them. Let me see if I can grab the other one. There we go. You can just bang them out, and you can see they're both a little bit different. You know, this one is a little shorter than this one, and it's just this leather was a little thicker, you know, but I like doing these without a pattern because all of the materials you're going to use are just a little bit different, and you really get to feel how each one is responding to the different measurements that you're using. So that's going to be it for this one. Hope you guys enjoyed, and we'll see you in the next one.